This video is based on an incident that might be unsettling for some people. We will be discussing about murder, suicide, and heavy loss of life. Viewer discretion is advised. Let's say you are driving down the road in the middle of a windy and dark night, and suddenly you crash into a tree. The odds of you getting into a car crash is 1 in 5,000 chances, but you getting into a plane crash is 1 in 11 million. But you see, this so-called accident we will be discussing today is something so dark and twisted, you might not be able to digest this information. This is the unfortunate truth of Germanwings Flight 9525. Lufthansa is no doubt the biggest airline in Germany. After it was founded in 1953, it is now known for their 747 business classes and incredible safety. So just like most big airlines, they usually support a low-budget carrier airline, just like Qantas's QantasLink or Malaysian Airlines' AirAsia. March 24, 2015, Barcelona Airport of Spain, a major destination for low-cost carriers. An Airbus 320-200 owned by Lufthansa's budget carrier, Germanwings, sits at the airport ready for passengers to board. The aircraft is 24 years old, registered as D-AIPX. The plane had flown almost 47,000 flights, which is an incredible number considering it has flown back and forth with Lufthansa and Germanwings. Today, the flight is flying from Barcelona Airport to Düsseldorf in Germany. Captain Patrick is the pilot in command today. He has about 3,000 flight hours on board the A320. Flying with him is First Officer Andreas Lubitz. He joined the carrier in 2013 and had collected 630 hours flying. 540 hours are on the A320. On board were 144 passengers and 6 crew members. Most of the passengers were students going on a field trip to Germany. At time 10:01 AM, the flight was 26 minutes behind its schedule. The controllers in Spain gives the approval for the flight to take off on runway 07 right. The Airbus rotates into the sky. "26 minutes after takeoff, the plane reaches its cruising altitude, 38,000 feet. For now, all the pilots have to do is to monitor the plane. If all goes to plan, the plane should land at Düsseldorf at 11:39 AM. Irmar is a set coordinate waypoint in the plane's flight path. Air traffic controllers instruct the pilots to continue on their heading to Irmar, which the pilot acknowledged. For now, the flight exits Spain's airspace and enters French territory. As this is happening, the first officer on board gives a recommendation to the captain. The captain responds. The captain leaves the cockpit to use the bathroom. Now, if the captain had stayed in the cockpit, things would have been so much different. Without any reason, First Officer Lubitz programs the autopilot to descend. He made a pretty steep input of 2,000 feet per minute to the lowest possible altitude the autopilot can fly on. Due to the high rate of descent, the speed of the engine slowly increases. Following that, the speed of the aircraft was set to 275 knots, the fastest operational speed, but still be able to cruise normally. 10:33 a.m. An air traffic controller in Marseille sees that the plane is descending without permission. They ask, but gets no answer. Instead, the autopilot speed was increased to 320 knots. A minute later, the captain returns from his toilet break. He rings the buzzer, which is a makeshift doorbell in case someone wants to enter the cockpit. Air traffic controllers at the moment still tries to contact the plane, but still gets no response. The speed selected for the autopilot was increased to 350 knots, officially overspeeding. The captain knocks on the cockpit door. Nothing. He contacts Lubitz directly through the interphone, but still no reply. He commands. As the minutes tick by, passengers can now see that the plane was getting closer to the ground. Captain Patrick is desperate. He attempts to break down the cockpit door with the emergency axe. However, ever since 9/11, cockpit doors were upgraded to be bulletproof and impenetrable. A flimsy crash axe unfortunately could not do the job. Other planes flying near Flight 9525 overheard the previous transmissions by air traffic controllers and attempts to communicate to Flight 9525. Of course, still no response. Only multiple deep breaths were heard on the cockpit voice recorder, and the desperate captain trying to save his passengers' lives. He violently hits the cockpit door as hard as he could, crying out to Lubitz to reconsider his actions. Only a shallow silence were in the cockpit.
Terrain ahead.
The sounds of the engine were now blocked by the terrain alarm. The plane slams into a mountain flying at 350 knots. At Marseille, news of a Germanwings Airbus crashing into the French Alps spreads quickly. It reaches to search and rescue teams when they confirm the worst. Aircraft debris scatters over the Alps. It's now the investigators' jobs to find out what happened. When they listen to the cockpit voice recorder, the investigation room turns dark. Now they must determine why would someone who is suicidal turn to murder. To have someone suddenly snap and decide to kill themselves is terrible on its own, but to suddenly decide to end other lives just with theirs is something nobody could understand. After all, Andreas Lubitz was a pilot. The average salary of an airline pilot is around $200,000 a year. There will be no signs of Lubitz having financial issues. A deeper look into Andreas Lubitz's personal life tells investigators everything. Andreas Lubitz suffered from depression long before he joined Germanwings. When he was training at flight school, he had actually took a few months break because he was hospitalized. He went to multiple psychiatrists and doctors. In 2009, he was back into flying, but his problems persisted. He apparently had multiple mental breakdowns following the years, till of course that fateful day when he finally snapped. A professional pilot flying for an airline, crashing in their own plane. This shook the aviation industry to its core. Would you believe this had happened before? Now the beautiful mountains of the French Alps is a crash site. Once used to be 150 people on board a plane, controlled to the very end. This incident will forever stay in the industry.
Glide slope. Glide slope.